Go, 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 let's get it. I'm a trapping fanatic, that shit automatic, so I cannot turn it on or off. Bitches all on my dick, then she hop on my dick, I'm like, why you keep hopping on and off? Your bitch all on my dick, she be doing the most, I tell her, little bitch, you so extra. And my gun up on me, but not run up on me, niggas, they wanna fight, they some wrestlers.
Ego explains how this selection will work, with Isagi noting that this will be the real test of his own ego. Before this selection, everything seemed different, as they were forced to perfect their weapons. Now, their ego. But a striker has to be on full display here. Ren, of course, shocks everyone with his pinpoint accuracy, but Isagi perfectly copies it, heading in right after him. So, there are still challenges like him that exist here. Well, I'll crush him as well. Our striker steps through the doors, entering a large room where a ball drops down from the ceiling. Seeing it fall, Isagi looked on ahead, shooting it into the goal, scoring on the holographic keeper. The timer and goal amount would appear on the screen, with Isagi saying that this should be fun. His eyes glow, and we see Isagi practicing shooting techniques that he studied over the years. Many pro player shots were seen in this room, with Anri commenting that he's amazing. However, Ego saw something different within Isagi's last shot. It seemed as if he combined the different leg swings into his own. This shot created an almost gun-like noise with how loud it was, and the hologram stood no chance because of its speed. Isagi then exited the room with a serious expression and sweat all over him, first stepping through the gate to see Itoshi Rin looking back at him. So you're the second. Isagi nods, and the two don't speak any more than that, as he wonders what he should do. Playing alongside someone like him may prove to be useful for learning new skills, but defeating him is even more interesting. Isagi sighs, aligning himself with the prodigy, and they wait for one more person to enter, as that would be Ryu, so this would be their three-man team that they would take into the next room. Of course, when Team Z's players make it to the first room, they look around for Isagi, but they come to the conclusion that he's already moved on and made it even further. And since Isagi wasn't present, Nagi decided to stick with Ryo. The three-man team that went into the next room consisted of Bachira, Kira, and Kunigami. When they stepped through, they saw Isagi laid out bored, smiling, saying they would take him back. The two teams declared their match and headed onto the pitch minutes later. Ren started with the ball, looking ahead, using a signature shot that scored from half field. This left his opponents in terror of what it might be like to face someone on Isagi's level. Kunigami did his best to reassure them that he'd take down Isagi, which would make them smile. Kira knew his job was to outsmart Rin, but how could he do that? There was no strategy being used. Upon their first possession with the ball, Isagi then appeared, stopping Kunigami. I'll be taking this. Isagi went right by his old friends, but Bachira and Kira stood in front of goal. Kira noted to himself that they could block his shot with their bodies and have Kunigami get the rebound. Ren was standing still, and Ryu seemed to be their defender, so there's no chance that they could fail here. Then, it happened. A gunshot went off in the room, and the noise of the ball rolling against the net was heard next, as it was behind them. The two would turn, seeing it, but not believing it at all. He scored, but there was no real wind-up to his shot. He generated that much power in an instant? What the hell? Even Ren couldn't believe it. This guy might be his only rival here. From this goal, the morale of Isagi's opponents, well, extended to his eventual victory with a score of 5-0. Now was the choice. They wondered who would be taken, but Isagi chose to take Kira. That brain of yours can still provide some use to me in this selection. Bachira and Kunigami are sent back as they had to go through intense trials in order to make it all the way back to them. Still, this ends up with Kunigami being sent into the wild card, but this time, he looks at it differently. He views it as his chance to become a real hero, so he'll take everything on head on. The team that makes it to play against Isagi and Rin is Ryo and Nagi, who had Chigiri and Raichi on their team. This was the final match before either team could have enough players to move on. Of course, Nagi wanted to beat Isagi badly, but they knew if they won, they would choose him anyway. Isagi was alone, meditating, as it was something he copied from Rin. When Nagi walked into the room, "Yo, Isagi, I want a rematch." Only one eye of our protagonist opened as he accepted the challenge. A day passes as each team is now seen ready to play. This was going to be the match that decided it all. Rin starts with the ball and performs his signature shot, allowing them to get their first goal. Of course, his opponents called it a cheap trick, but Isagi backs him up. "You should be able to stop it if you've made it this far." This shuts them up, annoyed, but they go on their own attack. Nagi and Ryo move throughout the field, making it right by Isagi and Rin. Both of them actually allowed this to happen, as when Ryo crossed it in the air, Ryu jumped up, heading it into the midfield. Rin would then look at Isagi as they would make their move, with Kira now having the ball. Ryo scoffed, saying they fell for their plan, watching Isagi and Rin completely obliterate Raichi and Chigiri. Kira makes it by them and sends it to Isagi. This is where it happens. Rin moves, trying to take the ball, but Isagi blocks him, showing off his strength, where he scores with his back to Rin, calling him ignorant. If this is how he wants to play, then he can play that way as well. Isagi and Rin look at each other, declaring their own battle within this match, as they forget about their opponents, and begin fighting for the loose balls and any chance to score a goal that comes around. Through this, Rin would realize that Isagi is much stronger than he is, in every way too. Isagi is able to break his ankles, steal his passes, counter his defense, and so much more than even that. Before the two even realized it, Isagi had scored the final goal with a trick shot that he stole from a pro player. Ryo and Nagi didn't know what to think of it. They were just beaten again, and this time more easily than before. Isagi looks at them, remembering they need to choose someone, so he walks by Kira, placing a hand on his head. "Go ahead, pick for us." Kira turns, allowing his judgment to pass through his brain as he decides the fate of this player. Kira points at Ryo, wanting to learn how to play the midfield position just like him, using Ryo to develop his own vision of the field. Isagi calls Kira selfish in a good way, and the five of them move on to the next room, where Jinpachi Ego shows himself once again. It seems that luck has been on your side thus far, but do you think it will run out against players like this? The players from around the world appear, and Isagi's eyes would glow. To take their skills for his own is what he must accomplish. Ego goes on to explain more about luck, even more in their last match, especially to Rin, going on to detail on why he can't beat Isagi the way he is now. The basic gist of it is that Isagi cannot be stopped by any conventional defending. Something irregular that he hasn't seen before must be present in order to stop him. Ego shows a clip of Isagi clearly overwhelming Rin, saying that the key is always going to be right in front of him. A day or so goes on, and the team of 5 step up on the pitch against the World 5 players. Each of them seemed uninterested in this until Rin walked up to them talking trash. The others don't care to join it, but Isagi does. "Who really cares what they think, Rin?" he would say while putting his arm around him. "Doesn't matter how they think they'll do, even if they think they can beat someone like us. I'll destroy them later on an even bigger stage." Loki steps up, wanting to test his theory since they were similar in age, with Isagi saying that he could beat him now. Loki gets serious, wanting to see what his opponent was truly about. Kira then asked them if the two would work together, but Isagi didn't care for it. This was Blue Lock at the end of the day, not some sort of team bonding trip. The alarm would then go off, with Isagi having the ball first. Loki appears in front of him, stating that this was his chance. Isagi nods and blitzes the striker with his quick moves as well as his dribbling. Kavassos then appeared, defending him, and tries to corner Isagi, blocking him from the goal. With his quick thinking, Isagi utilizes Kira to make his way to goal, but now the final three would stand in his way, as well as Rin waiting for his chance. Kiro would wonder where he could even shoot from, and then he remembered that power shot that he pulled out before. Isagi's greedy smile reemerges as his face resembles ego. He shoots it, scoring the goal that rips through the air with a crack. So, you all come from the world of football. Make sure you tell him I said hey. Isagi from this point contends with each player, still leading his team to a defeat. Rin does steal one of his goals, but the match is the closest one that they would ever play. The final score ends up with it being 5-3, with the world players in shock of Isagi. He copied each of their plays perfectly, but it seemed that even those skills drained his body. His body was almost steaming from overexhaustion, and he was barely standing. Isagi thinks back to the moment where he felt it the most. Yeah, it all started there, when I copied the speed of Loki. My body, for the first time in a while, felt really heavy after, almost as if copying that ability was out of my range. More skills after that continued to make me tired, but each one of them was amazing. I want more, even more than that, to push my body to its limits. Isagi follows his team into a room where Ego congratulates them on their loss, but there's still much more to come. The team is forced to learn new languages and continue their training. This was until they went into a room, which would lead them into the third selection. They were still the first team to enter, and many others came after them. The only person missing was Kunigami, but Isagi figured that the path to become a hero may have led him to his eventual downfall. Ego would then explain that a match will be held against Japan's U20 team, being led by Itoshi Sei, as Japan wants to test Blue Lock and their egoists, and their resolve. So, our top players, who we have, are Yoichi Isagi, and, for the second, which would shock many, Ryusei Shido. The rest of the list remains the same, with Ren now being number 3. The teams are then set into categories of A, B, and C, as now the remaining players must choose a duo to align themselves with. After everyone is chosen, the matches will then begin, and throughout them Isagi leads his team with Shido as his backbone. The two get along off the pitch, but it's on it, where a constant battle for dominance happens. Shido is able to catch Isagi off guard throughout their matches, stealing some of his goals, which Isagi would use to help develop his own eyes, to see the field even further. The entire field, the plays, not just what's right in front of him. With this evolution, Isagi begins toying with Shido and using him to create diversions for his own goals, leading to Isagi scoring a majority of them in their matches. Once the final match was complete, Ego went to create a starting lineup for Blue Lock's 11. He states to Anri that it might be harder than he imagined, but he wants to win, so he knows what must be done. The players continue training and waiting for Ego, who works in the background crafting a masterful team. Many asked Isagi if he thinks that he would be on the starting lineup and if he was nervous, but he didn't seem fazed at all. And then came the day that it would be announced. All is the same, except for Isagi now running the striker position and Rin now being a midfielder. Now, the stage was set for a grand match, with Jinpachi Ego putting all of his faith into his players, as on the other side we see Shido meeting his team and the Japan U20 players not taking him serious. But he does mention something that does get their attention. There's someone who will defeat them if they're not careful. This makes Itoshi Sei even focus on hearing the words, no, a name. Yoichi Isagi.